Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, and today we're going to talk about the hidden meaning of Purim. Now, Purim seems like a nice child's play. All the children come to the synagogue and they wear costumes. It's cute, it's nice, you have a good time. But if you read the book of the Megillah, which is the book of Esther, you'll find that there's very, very deep meaning inside of it. Now, it's one of the ideas is that you don't even find the God's name written in there. Usually you always say God, Elohim, and different names of God in the Megillah. Not in the Megillah, but in the other parts of Chumash. But Megillah, you don't see any one of God's name. So I'll tell you a basic Judaism answer, and then I will tell you a deeper answer. The basic Judaism answer is this, that again, the story took place of the Megillah in the land of Persia. And actually at the end of the Megillah that Esther, who is the heroine of the story, and we'll talk about later, but in any case, she said, write down this story and make it known to everybody. And everybody knew this story because Ahasuerus ruled the whole world, and it was a king's decree. It wasn't some little corner of the world. And they would get the story. This is a miraculous story, and everybody liked it. It says near the end, all the nations of the world respected the Jewish people. It was headline news. And in any case, that if they would write God, they would say, well, if you say God, this one would put their kind of God. This is way before Christianity and Islam, of course, 2,500 years ago. But they did have other gods, their idols, and they would say their idol did it. Their God would perpetuated the miracle, and it wasn't the Jewish God. So therefore that they had to see to it that there's no God's name in it, so no one could substitute an idolatrous name of their God. Now that's your basic Judaism. The deeper idea is as follows, that Haman was thinking to destroy the Jews, but he knew, and people do read the Bible. Of course, all the Christians and Muslims do read the Old Testament, as we call it the Tanakh, and they do read it, and they read the stories, and they know the history of the Jews, that somehow or another, even though the Jewish people are the most persecuted people in the world, and they're scattered all over. I mean, now today half the Jewish people live in Israel, but that wasn't, again, 100 years ago, and even more than that, Jewish people in Russia and America and Europe, of course. Now, how could they keep their identity? And they were in the Middle East, and they're different kind of people. They're Sephardim, not Ashkenaz, but they're all still one people, even though, number one, they're scattered, number two, they're persecuted. So something must be happening with these Jewish people, something miraculous or divine about them. And Haman understood this too. Haman understood that the Jewish people, they're always surviving one way or another. Now, how could that happen? Well, one of the ideas is we can say is just that it is miraculous, and they did understand that this God intervened. So how can you destroy a people as Haman wanted to do? Thank God he didn't get his plans fulfilled. But in any case, he said, well, I'm going to have to go through normal means. Normal means you kill people, you shoot them. I mean, they didn't have guns in those days. I'm making fun. But in any case, you destroy them one way or the other. But the Jewish people, seems that they cannot be destroyed. But he says that, what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to go to a highest level of divinity. And that is that ultimately that God is so above everything. Again, we always say it's a beautiful idea. God, even though we are in the lowest physical world here, and we are so very, very finite, and God is so infinite, so how should he care about anything in this world or anything that we do? We're 1 out of 8 billion people in the world. Who cares about your toothache and that you have to pray to God that he's going to care about your little minor. Well, not to you, it's not minor, but in the vast realm of the universe, it's minor. But that, on the contrary, is because God is so beyond infinity that he does care about every little thing in this world. He gets happy when you do something right, and he's sad and upset with you if you did something wrong. On the other hand, God is like I say, he's beyond infinity. Infinity is really a low description to God. He's beyond infinity. And therefore, everything that is the same. Light is like darkness. Ooh, Haman says, that's where I want to be. Because in this world that we see that God does favor the Jews, they are the chosen people. And I want to go beyond that, where God says, well, everything is like nothing to me, and everything is the same. Like we said, light and darkness, good and bad. It doesn't make a difference to God. That's where I want to be, because that's when I'll be able to destroy the Jews, Haman says. So therefore, that's what we see the name of Purim, which is actually a Persian name, means poor. It says that really in the Megillah, if you would look at it, means a lottery. Now, this itself is a very funny idea. He says, well, why did the Jews call lottery? Haman threw down a lottery in order to say, what's the best day, the special day that I'm going to kill the Jewish people? Now, what are you throwing down a lottery for? If you plan an event, let's even say opening of a new store, you don't say, well, let's throw down a lottery and see what's the best day. You figure out, is it the spring, the summer, this day when the contractor is going to be finished? You figure it out. You don't just throw down a lottery and just figure out and say, okay, that's the best day, that's an auspicious day to do something. So what's with this Haman throwing down a lottery? Now, who wins the lottery? Well, you could say, for example, you go into college. If you're going to get a C and someone's getting an A, well, doesn't take too much effort to understand. The person with the A is the admissions board is going to say you get into college, and the guy with the C doesn't get into college, or anything else for that matter. That's why you make a resume. They're not going eeny, meeny, miny, mo, who should we pick for the job? We want to look at your qualifications, your experience, your education, and then with your mind, you intellectually understand you pick the right person for the job. You don't go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. But again, let's contrast that to the lottery. Who wins the lottery? It's not the governor's cousin who says, ooh, I want to give him the $1 billion. He's my cousin, or, I'm making fun of some idea. Some of his close relatives or his associates gave money for his campaign. No, that's not what happens. And we see many times that a person on welfare, someone who's dirt poor, he plays the numbers, and all of a sudden, overnight, he wins the lottery, and he's a multimillionaire. How did he get to win? Who is he? He's not appreciated, doesn't even have a job. He's not respected in the world. How did he win millions of dollars? Well, again, a lottery doesn't care who you are and what you are. You could be, like I say, a billionaire, or you have an inroad with the governor, or you could be a welfare person, and each one has an even odds. Oh, look at that now, what did we say? So that's why Haman threw down a lottery. He says by normal ideas, like who's the chosen people, the Jewish people, and like I say, in the Old Testament, and Christians and the Muslims understand this, that the Jewish people are the chosen people. When you go to a lottery, like I just said before, everybody's equal. Ooh, he says, that's what I want to do. I want to reach to a level that everybody is equal, and the Jews are equal with Haman, because, like I just say, with a lottery, the welfare person is literally on the same level as the millionaire and the billionaire and the biggest person in the state and in the country, and that's where I want to be. And therefore, that he decided he's going to throw a lottery, and it fell into the month of Adar. And this is the month that we celebrate Purim. It's the Hebrew month. It's the month before Passover. And Adar is so great because to us that it was Moses' yahrzeit. But Haman was very happy. Ooh, he said, the lottery came out in my favor. What was his favor? That he says, Adar, he knew, I don't know how many other people know, but Haman did know that Moses passed away. That's why I say a yard site, it's the anniversary of somebody's death. He passed away in the 7th day of Adar. Says, ooh, Adar's going to be a good month. The leader, the biggest Jewish person of the Jewish history, Moses, he died, shows it's a bad day. But on the other hand, that we actually say just the opposite the Jewish people say. So many people say, and unfortunately they say it today, I observe many funerals, of course, people say, well, they're dead and gone. Do what you want with the body, cremate them, doesn't make a difference, you're dead and gone. And that is not a true idea, it's not the Torah way. The Torah way is that, yes, the body has passed away, but the soul lives on forever. And on the contrary, the soul is freer to do what it wants to do in the next world. Here, a soul's in a body and goes where the body goes. On the other hand, in the spirituality, that it's beyond time, beyond place, and can be many places at once. So therefore, and we say the Kaddish on for the first year that passed away, and on the yard site, again, yard site means the anniversary of their death, because they get an uplift as now dead and gone. What do you sing praise for something that vanished? But no, that's not what Torah says. Torah says they are in the spiritual worlds, and therefore that they have an elevation. And in turn, that they are pulling for their relatives and friends in heaven. And when things everything comes from Shemayim, from heaven, and maybe something a little bad we shouldn't know from it happens. And they say, well, that's a decree that the person next will, oh, no, he's going to beg and plead and pray, nothing bad should happen to my relatives and friends. And therefore, it's a reciprocal relationship. But again, you're not dead and gone, that a person lives, in certain senses, a person lives even more on, in a spiritual sense they do, and in a physical sense because of that. And therefore, that Haman was happy, because to his idea, you're dead and gone, goodbye and good luck. And that is not the Torah idea. Torah says that a person's even greater. So actually, Moses not only died that day of 7th of Adar, he was born on the 7th day of Adar, and he lived exactly 120 years. And that's very, very special. You give a blessing to someone should live till 120, but exactly his birthday should be at the same time of his yard site, then he is be able to, that he's going to fulfill his mission in the world and all those mitzvahs and good things that they do in the next world. It rose up to even a higher spiritual level. So, but to get back to the idea that Haman, at least he thought that he won the lottery. And another thing that he was pulling for, these are all very deep ideas, that when Mordecai decided to murder, Haman decided to murder Mordecai, he thought, well, I'm in with the king anyway, he's going to listen to me and get rid of this Mordecai guy. That he built a gallows, 50 amos, and amos like a cubit, it's like your hand from your big finger all the way down to your elbow. In any case, about 1.5 foot, give or take. So 50 times a foot and a half is 75 feet tall. What do you need a gallows 75 feet tall? That all you need is a gallows 7 feet, a foot off the ground, so they'll be hanged. What do they need it so high? So again, I always bring in the basic Judaism, number one, and I bring in the number two. I bring in, which is what we're doing here, bringing in the hidden deeper meanings, the mystical ideas of what's really happening in the Megillah. Well, he wanted to show everybody, he was on top of the world at that time. He was second in charge, the prime minister of Persia, a vast empire. The king likes him. Esther, the queen, invited him to a party, and therefore he's on top of the world. So therefore he thought that, he says, I'm going to show the world that Mordecai is dead, put him on display, so to speak. A dead body is morbid, but in any case, that's what he was ready to do, and that's why he had 50 amos, 75 feet tall. So everybody should see Mordecai hanging from the gallows. Well, that's their basic Judaism again and again, going a little deeper. What is 50 idea that it is? It says there's 49 gates of understanding. And you can get higher and higher. I mean, I don't know how much we get. We're probably on the bottom floor of one level gate of understanding. But again, you're talking about very high people. Let's say, for example, Moses was on the 49th gate of understanding. And really the 50th gate is that something you don't understand. What does that mean? 49 gates of understanding, and then ultimately you don't understand. Well, the Rambam Maimonides, the great philosopher and thinker, said the ultimate knowledge is that you understand that you don't understand. I mean, maybe scientists and doctors say, oh yeah, we know that, we'll cure this, and we know how to go to the moon and to Mars. But if you really dig deeper, and if they're really humble about it, they really do understand that that they don't understand. They understand a lot. Obviously, they're scientists and they're doctors. On the other hand, ultimately, they don't understand that there's things that they'll hopefully readily admit that they don't understand. So the ultimate idea that you understand, you have a vast amount of knowledge, but then ultimately you understand you don't really understand anything from, you understand something, but ultimately there's so much greater knowledge that you don't understand. Albert Einstein, the man of the century, the biggest genius, he was trying to get to that everything is oneness. Again, he understood, I got my PhD, I got a Nobel Prize, I'm a genius, and I'll just sit back and I figured everything out. No, he knew he didn't figure everything out. There's always more knowledge. So that 50th gate, really one can only achieve when they pass away. Like I say, where no matter who you are, and may be the greatest genius, but you're inhibited by your soul being enclosed in a body. But like we said, obviously when you pass away, there's no more body, and then you can really achieve more spiritual heights because you're in a spiritual world and not enclosed in a body. The only one who reached to that level was Moses, that if you know a little Hebrew, I'm going to say a little something. When did he pass away? Har Nevo. Where did he pass away? On the mountain, a place called Nevo on the east side of the Jordan River, in the Jordan Valley. And that's the basic Judaism. Again, the deeper idea, if you have to know gematria, numerical value, the nun, bo, that the nun is in it, the nun is the numerical value of 50, that he reached to the highest level of achievement, that when he passed away, he reached the 50th gate. Again, back to our Haman story and the Megilas story, is that Haman wanted to achieve the idea that you don't know, something beyond knowledge. That was our common theme now, that he threw down a lottery because it doesn't make a difference who you are to win the lottery. You come to the 50th gate, 50 amos of the as high as the gallows. I want to reach the 50th gate where it doesn't make a difference who you are and what you are. But the deeper idea is that Haman, I mean, for him was a good idea. Obviously for the Jews it was a bad idea. But for him was a very good idea, and he had a plan. On the other hand, what he was trying to achieve was not the correct way, because ultimately God, that even though we said, and obviously he's beyond good or bad, he's totally beyond infinity. On the other hand, there's some essential expression that he felt that the Jews are my people, and you can't exchange them. That even though it may not be intellectually right, and it may not be, you don't understand, like I say, that it's beyond understanding, but beyond, there's the Almighty has an essential connection to the Jewish people, and he wouldn't let them get harmed. And that's really, on a practical note, a Jewish person also. Let's face it, let's be honest, many Jewish people do not do Torah mitzvahs, they don't go to the synagogue, and they don't really care about Judaism, you could say, but when push comes to shove, then I'm a Jew, no matter what, and no one can change that. Well, why? You don't do anything, you don't go to the synagogue, you don't keep kosher, you don't do the mitzvahs, why does it make a difference? So give it up altogether. But no, you cannot give it up. because there's an essential relationship between you and the Almighty in Judaism, and nothing can change that. And that's an important idea that we can take a lesson from that, but Haman was trying to get that idea also. And we said that also the same idea that even though there's no God's name, what is a name? A name is something that you have a handle on. I mean, if I talk to somebody in the show, hey, Chaim, come over here. Well, Chaim is going to turn around and not somebody else because I have a handle on him. That's his name. But what if you're all alone in an island and it doesn't make a difference what you do, where you are? Who needs a name? No one's going to call you anyway. There's nobody around. But are you less of a person because there's nobody around and you don't need a name? No. You're a full 100% person even without a name. And it's the same thing with the Almighty. Actually, there are 10 names, according to the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, that God has. That you want to bring him down for things. You want to draw down God. Like we say, you want mercy and you want kindness. And all there's 10 spheros also that actually parallel these 10 names. But again, there are different times when God is, you need mercy. Sometimes that God is tough. And he has different names that connotate those kind of mitos, those emotions, and those spheros that come down to us. But ultimately, like we said, God is not just a name, just like human beings are not just a name, deeper than just a name, that we are who we are, and God is who he is. And therefore, that he doesn't need a name, he's essential. And that's the same idea that we've been saying all along, that even though that maybe you don't perceive him and you don't feel him, it may not be too spiritual. I mean, you can achieve that spirituality if you work on it, but even if you don't, that there is God and there is that connection of a Jewish person, and he is still around. He didn't say just goodbye and good luck. The Jewish people aren't connected to me. I'm not connected to them, and therefore I have nothing to do with them. No, that is not a Jewish idea at all. Maybe other people's ideas are, but it's not Jewish. And the Torah idea, of course, is that every Jewish person is essentially connected to Hashem. Obviously, you want to express it, and you express it by learning the Torah and doing the mitzvahs. But even if you don't, you're still a Jewish person. You're still connected to the Almighty. And that's what Haman had to learn the hard way, because he was ultimately hanged on the gallows. And all the Amalek, the people who hate the Jewish people, were destroyed also. Unfortunately, it wasn't all. I said all, but it's not all. There are still Amalek, even that's 2,500 years ago. We see that today, that there are people irrationally hating the Jews, and Jewish people don't bother anybody. And Israel doesn't bother anybody. And it's just people who hate the Jewish people. That is a trait of Amalek, this tribe that was even in ancient times when Moses is around. They were fighting with the Jewish people in the desert. Nevertheless, that they're always fighting, but they did survive. We beat them up. We beat them up in the Chumash, and we beat them up at the Purim story. But on the other hand, they still survive. I mean, you see that today, like again, Hitler and the Nazis. What did the Jewish people do to anybody? Why are you hurting them? They didn't hurt anybody in Germany. They were helping out the German state. But nevertheless, that there's an irrational hatred, totally irrational. Jewish people weren't hurting anybody or anything. And nevertheless, you see the vehement hatred that was by the Nazis. And it goes on even till today in the land of Israel. So a person has to understand that the Purim Megillah is very important. So you say, well, it's a nice, interesting, cute story. And like I said at the beginning, oh, the kids, they'll have a good time. I'll dress them up in costumes and we'll have a fun time. Well, you know, it's fine that there's a fun time, but there's deeper ideas with them in the idea of the Megillah. Now, it actually says in a very deep idea, because we are dealing with the deeper meanings of Purim, that these days are Nizcharim, they're remembered, Menasim, and redone. Meaning that, yes, the story that did take place. It was a real story 2,500 years ago in Persia across the world, which Persia is Iran today. But in any case, that nevertheless, that we that we relive this story today. And one of the lessons is that, because first of all, Torah is infinite, God is infinite, and it's a story for us today. And that's why I was bringing out now that you say, well, people don't hate the Jews anymore. World War II is over, like we said with Hitler and his Nazis. But it's not true. There are still people who hate the Jewish people. There's still anti-Semitism, totally irrational, like I just said. And Jewish people aren't hurting anybody. They're just only being helpful to everybody. And nevertheless, this story does constantly repeat, but the Jewish people, again, at the deepest level, that they are, that they will see at the end of Megillah, because then Haman's destroyed, he's killed, his sons are killed, and further on, many, again, if you read the Megillah, thousands of people who hated the Jews are also murdered. And it then finally says the Jewish people, for the Jewish people was gladness, 4 different descriptions, gladness and happiness, light and glory for the Jewish people. So in the end, obviously it'll be good for the Jewish people. Ultimately, we still are in exile, and they were. It's interesting that even though, like we said, it was victorious at the end for the Jewish people, they were still in Persia. It's only going to be Esther's son, Darius II, that's going to allow the Jewish people to go back to Israel and rebuild a second temple. In the meantime, at the end of Megillah, they're still in the exile. They're still in Persia. So to us, that we should have happiness and glory and beauty, and everything should be good for the Jewish people, but we still have to remember we are in exile. That means that there's still hatred for the Jewish people, anti-Semitism, but the main thing is that's what's alluded to in these nice words, Or V'Simcha, that we have to, the light is the Torah light, the men should put on tefillin, there should be more and more mitzvahs that bring in Torah and Or, and that's really our strength. We surely don't have to, and we shouldn't beat up anybody. We're not fighting anybody. Our fight is with Torah and the mitzvahs. We're accentuating the positive of doing more and more Torah and the mitzvahs to eliminate the negative, in order that the Jewish people should have only good things. And of course, we end up, even though the Megillah ended up that they're still in exile, we want to end up the whole idea of exile 2,000 years later. They were only in exile for 70 years between the first and second temple. We're in exile for near 2,000 years. But ultimately, the Mashiach, the Messiah, is going to come, and the Rambam Maimonides assures us there won't be any more enemies, because there will be no more jealousy and hatred. There will be peace in the land. There'll be prosperity for everybody. Should only come very soon in our day. Thank you very much for listening to The Jewish View.